Hello and welcome back to Pod Popper's Place. This month I am working with Stick It Down and their August sketch. This part 1 is my literal interpretation of the sketch for this month. I decided to work with this fabulous double-sided heavy-duty cardstock that has beautiful foiled clouds on one side and a turquoise stripe on the other. We'll also be working with a very old Stampin' Up! Set that has happy birthday stamps and a cute little basket to turn balloons into a hot air balloon. Watch part 2 of this video to see how I use these Christmas stamps to make my creative interpretation of the sketch for this month. I used Coastal Cabana from Stampin' Up! And I ink up the balloon twice, trying to get a full coverage. It didn't quite get there, but balloons kind of have that translucent appearance anyway. I was going to use Happy Birthday on it, but when I put the confetti stamp over the top of it, I just felt like it covered up too much of the wording, so I decided to use Celebrate instead as my sentiment. And then I inked up the Celebrate with VersaFine. I just love how it gives a nice clear black impression. And then I used some Starlight Silver pigment ink for the confetti. Then I got out some layering circle dies and was trying to decide which size I wanted to use. I actually preferred the smaller size for the card, but it was just barely fitting around the balloon, so I didn't want it to be quite that tight, and I was afraid I would cut off the bottom of the balloon, so I went with the larger size. I cut out the larger circle from some Bermuda Bay cardstock from Stampin' Up! I believe, and I also used a cloud embossing folder to give a little bit of dimension and texture to the circle. Even though it's not going to show a whole lot, it does make a little bit of a difference. I noticed I had gotten some ink on my circle, and so I tried to erase that, but it didn't come off quite enough, so I decided to add some silver dots with my marker to the dots on the clouds just around the edge of the circle so that it would kind of hide that error. I used the VersaFine again to stamp the little hot air balloon basket, and then I go ahead and cut out the smaller circle for the balloon. And I'm cutting off part of the basket, but that's okay because I'm going to layer the rest of the basket stamps onto the other circle and to the base of the card. As you can see, pigment ink stays wet for a long time, so when you run it through your die cut machine, you might want to put a piece of paper on top of it so that it doesn't put ink onto your cutting plates and then get onto other paper later. As I only want the basket on the striped paper, I am using some masking tape to cover part of the stamp up and just putting the basket in VersaFine down on that paper, and then I'm going to heat emboss it with some silver embossing powder. Then I line up my stamp to get some lines from the balloon onto the circle with the clouds, and it doesn't line up perfectly, but if you wanted to correct this, you could just hand draw the lines instead. Then by popping up the balloon on some foam tape, it is going to give it some more dimension so that the lines from the balloon look like they're connected a little bit better. For my final layer, I cut out a silver piece of cardstock that's 5.5 by 4 1/4, and then I always try to go around the inside and cut at 1/2 of an inch around the inside so that I have a frame and I'm not wasting any extra paper, especially when it's specialty paper like this foiled kind. My last step in the process is just sticking it down. As the blog says, stick it down, and the elements of my card are coming together great. It is a literal interpretation. I'm using stars for my embellishment pieces, and I love how this card came out. I hope you enjoyed watching, and come back again next time for part 2 where I give my more creative interpretation of this month's card sketch. I would love it if you would like, subscribe, and comment. I'd love to know what you think of this card. And also check out Stick It Down on their blogspot at stickitdown.blogspot.com. And you can also find them on Facebook and Instagram. And they have 3 monthly sketch challenges, a double page and a single page for scrapbookers, and a card for people like myself who love to create cards. Come back again soon.